The grocery store is a subscription service you never agreed to sign. Every week you walk in, hand over money for food you didn't grow, couldn't preserve, and have no idea how to replace, and then you do it again next week. Forever. 10 plants changed that equation for me completely. Not 10 acres, not a homestead. 10 specific perennial and self-sustaining plants that produce food year after year, with no storefront, no supply chain, and no monthly bill. This is what permanent food infrastructure looks like. The average American household spends between $5,000 on groceries every single year. Do that math over a decade. You're looking at $50,000 to flowing out of your household and into a supply chain that includes fuel costs, refrigeration infrastructure, long-haul trucking, distribution warehouses, retail markup, and shareholders. Every dollar you spend at the register is subsidizing all of that before a single calorie reaches your plate. And here's what the system doesn't advertise. It's fragile. During COVID-19, grocery shelves emptied within 72 hours in most major cities. In 2021, a single container ship blocking the Suez Canal disrupted global food imports for weeks. In 2024, bird flu outbreaks caused egg prices to spike 60% in under 2 months, not because eggs disappeared, but because a centralized production system had no redundancy built in. Your great-grandparents didn't have this problem. Not because life was simpler, it wasn't, but because food production was distributed. Every household, every farm, every community maintained some direct connection to the means of growing food. That knowledge, and the plants that supported it, have been systematically replaced by the convenience of the grocery store. The hidden tax isn't just money, it's the loss of skill, the erosion of resilience, and the complete dependency on a system that can fail you without warning. What I'm going to show you isn't nostalgia, it's engineering. 10 plants, chosen for permanence, caloric density, and practical utility, that together form a food infrastructure you own outright. No monthly fee, no supply chain required. Number 1. Asparagus. Asparagus is the clearest example of food infrastructure that modern consumers don't understand. At the grocery store, a pound runs $4 to $6 and disappears from shelves when out of season. But a well-established asparagus bed is a different category of asset entirely. It can produce for 25 to 30 years from a single planting. That's 3 decades of spring harvests from one bed. The Romans cultivated asparagus extensively. Roman agriculturalist Cato the Elder documented its cultivation in 16 BC, and Roman legions were known to dry and carry it on campaigns because it stored well and provided concentrated nutrition. This isn't a modern vegetable, it's a plant humans have been depending on for millennia. Here's the mechanism. Asparagus establishes deep root crowns called rhizomes that expand underground each year. In year 1, you let it grow without harvesting so the root system can develop. By year 3, the harvest is significant. By year 5, a 4 by 8 foot bed is producing 20 to 30 pounds per season with almost no intervention. Buy 1-year-old crowns from a reputable seed company. Jersey Night and Purple Passion are reliable varieties. A 25 crown set runs about $20 to $30. Plant them 18 inches apart in a trench with good compost. The upfront effort is real. The long-term return is extraordinary. This isn't a vegetable. It's a 30-year annuity you plant once. Number 2. Elderberry. Elderberry does something almost no other plant in a home garden does. It feeds you and builds your medicine cabinet simultaneously. The berries are high in vitamins A, B6, and C, and documented clinical trials, including a 2016 randomized study published in Nutrients, showed elderberry extract reduced flu duration by an average of 4 days compared to placebo. During World War II, elderberry was used by communities across Europe when pharmaceutical supply lines were disrupted. It wasn't folk medicine, it was practical botany under crisis conditions. The plant produces within 2 to 3 years, and a mature elder shrub can yield 12 to 15 pounds of berries per season. The active compounds are anthocyanins, the same class of flavonoids that make blueberries valuable, but in significantly higher concentrations. These bind to viral particles and inhibit their ability to replicate and infect host cells. The mechanism is well documented. Make it into syrup, tincture, or dehydrate it for long-term storage. Buy bare root starts of the Sambucus nigra species, specifically the Bob Gordon or Adams variety. Expect to pay $15 to $25 per plant. 2 plants will cross-pollinate for larger yields. They tolerate most soils and grow fast. You're looking at a shrub that reaches 10 feet, produces food and medicine, attracts pollinators, and requires almost no maintenance after year 2. That's not a plant. That's infrastructure. Here's what changes the entire calculation. Most people think of a garden as annuals, plants you start from seed each spring and replant every year. That mental model is exactly what keeps you tethered to the store. Every plant on this list breaks that model entirely. You plant once, the harvest compounds, and the next 7 plants get even more interesting. Number 3. Comfrey. Comfrey is possibly the most underused plant in the English-speaking world, and the gap between what it costs and what it does is remarkable. It's not a food crop in the conventional sense, though the young leaves are edible and were eaten regularly in pre-industrial Europe. Its primary value is as a soil builder and fertility engine. Comfrey's root system reaches 6 feet deep, mining subsoil minerals, potassium, phosphorus, calcium, that shallow-rooted vegetables can't access. Cut the leaves and drop them around your garden beds and they break down in 2 to 3 weeks, releasing those minerals directly into the topsoil. In the permaculture world, this is called dynamic accumulation. It's a function that would otherwise require you to buy bags of fertilizer year after year from a store. Russian comfrey, specifically the Bocking 14 variety, is sterile and won't spread invasively. It grows back after cutting 4 to 6 times per season, providing continuous biomass. During the Irish famine period, comfrey was grown extensively in British kitchen gardens as a poverty plant, precisely because it required nothing and gave back constantly. Buy root cuttings of Bocking 14 from an organic nursery, typically $5 to $10 per root. Plant 3 to 5 along the edge of your garden. Within 1 season, you've eliminated the need for purchased fertilizer for that bed. Over a decade, that's several $100s of inputs you never buy. This is the support system that makes all the other plants on this list more productive. Number 4. Hazelnut. The grocery store charges $10 to $14 per pound for hazelnuts, and that's before factoring in that most commercial hazelnuts are imported from Turkey, which controls nearly 70% of global production. A single disruption to that supply chain shows up immediately in your grocery bill. You've seen it happen with everything else. Nuts will not be exempt. A hazelnut shrub begins producing in 3 to 4 years, reaches full production by year 8, and will continue yielding for 40 to 80 years. Indigenous cultures across North America relied on native hazelnut species as a primary caloric source for exactly this reason: reliable, storable, calorie-dense food from a perennial that required no cultivation once established. The caloric case is significant. Hazelnuts carry around 628 calories per 100 grams and are high in healthy fats, vitamin E, and manganese. They store easily in their shells for 12 months or more without refrigeration. That's shelf-stable caloric density you own, not rent. Plant American hazelnut, Corylus americana, or the hybrid variety called Theta from the Arbor Day Foundation. 2 plants are required for cross-pollination. Expect to pay $15 to $30 per bare root plant. They grow 8 to 12 feet and double as a windbreak or privacy hedge. A single mature plant can produce 10 to 15 pounds per year. 2 plants, 40 years. You're looking at a permanent caloric reserve you plant once and your children inherit. Number 5. Egyptian walking onion. Regular onions require you to buy seed or sets every single year. The Egyptian walking onion does the opposite. It multiplies itself, moves itself, and never stops producing. The name comes from how it propagates. The top of the plant produces small bulblets, the stalk bends under the weight, the bulblets touch the ground and take root nearby. Year after year, the colony walks across your garden, expanding without any input from you. Every part of this plant is edible year-round. The green tops function like scallions in winter and early spring when almost nothing else is growing. The underground bulbs function like shallots. The topset bulblets can be pickled, roasted, or used fresh. During the colonial American period, Egyptian walking onions were standard in kitchen gardens precisely because they could be harvested in every season, even in cold climates, and required nothing to perpetuate themselves. From a nutritional standpoint, alliums, the onion family, contain quercetin and sulfur compounds that have documented anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties. You're getting continuous medicinal food from a plant that manages its own propagation. You can start a colony for $10 to $20 for an initial set of bulblets from an heirloom seed company like Southern Exposure Seed Exchange or Baker Creek. Plant them once in a dedicated bed. Within 2 years, you'll have more than you need and can expand or share. You will never buy scallions or shallots again. Most people design a garden around what they want to eat this summer. That's the wrong frame entirely. The right question is, what can I plant once that will still be producing food when my children are adults? Every plant remaining on this list answers that question directly, and a couple of them will genuinely surprise you. Number 6. Lovage. Lovage is a plant that has almost vanished from North American gardens, which is precisely why it belongs in yours. It tastes like intensely concentrated celery. A single plant provides more celery flavor than you can use in a season. And unlike celery, which is notoriously difficult to grow, requires massive water inputs, and is one of the most pesticide-laden crops in commercial agriculture, lovage requires almost nothing. In medieval European kitchen gardens, lovage was a foundational plant used in broths, stews, salads, and as a medicinal herb for digestive complaints. It grows 6 feet tall, returns reliably every spring for decades, and begins producing usable leaves within weeks of emergence. Seeds, leaves, and roots are all edible and medicinally active. The seeds contain phallidides, the same compound responsible for celery's characteristic flavor and its mild diuretic and digestive properties. This is the chemical ancestor of the celery that industrial agriculture eventually commodified. You can grow the original, more potent version in a corner of your garden with 0 inputs. Seeds are available from most heirloom seed suppliers for $3 to $5 a packet. Start at once and you'll be dividing the root crown and sharing starts within 3 years. Substitute lovage leaves anywhere you'd use celery leaves, soups, stocks, potato salad, and eliminate one more item from your grocery list permanently. Number 7. Fig. The fig tree is one of the oldest cultivated food plants on Earth, referenced in the Old Testament, grown throughout ancient Mediterranean civilizations, and for good reason. A mature fig tree in a suitable climate produces 20 to 40 pounds of fruit per year, with no spraying, minimal pruning, and no irrigation beyond establishment. It's one of the most calorie-dense fruits you can grow, and fresh figs sell for $4 to $6 per pint at specialty grocery stores. The ancient Greeks distributed figs to athletes and soldiers as a primary energy source. Pliny the Elder documented that Roman gladiators ate figs daily for strength and endurance. This wasn't mythology. It was performance nutrition from a tree that took care of itself. Here's what most gardeners don't know. Figs are extraordinarily container-friendly, and cold-hardy varieties now exist for Zone 6 and even Zone 5 climates. Chicago Hardy is a documented variety that dies back to the ground in cold winters and resprouts vigorously from the roots every spring. In warmer climates, trees like Brown Turkey or Celeste produce reliably for 50 to 100 years. Purchase a potted fig from a local nursery for $15 to $40 or propagate cuttings freely. Fig cuttings root so easily that most fig owners will give them away. Fresh figs don't ship well and don't store well, which is exactly why grocery stores charge a premium for inferior product. Grow your own and eat them at peak ripeness, then dehydrate the surplus. They last 12 to 18 months dried with no refrigeration. Here's the number that reframes this entire project. The USDA estimates that Americans throw away between 30 and 40% of their food supply annually. That waste happens primarily because commercial food is harvested before peak ripeness for shipping tolerance. When you grow your own, you harvest at peak. Nothing ships. Nothing spoils in transit. The efficiency gain alone justifies every plant on this list. Number 8. Horseradish. Horseradish root costs $4 to $8 per jar at the grocery store, processed, preserved, diluted with vinegar, and significantly less potent than fresh. A horseradish plant in your garden is effectively indestructible. Plant a root once, and you will spend the rest of your life trying to contain it, not protect it. It is one of the most resilient food plants that exists in temperate climates. During the 19th century, horseradish was a standard household crop across Europe and North America, grown for both culinary and medicinal use. Its antimicrobial compounds, primarily allyl isothiocyanate, the same compound in mustard, were used as natural food preservatives and topical treatments for respiratory congestion and infection before pharmaceutical antibiotics existed. The mechanism is straightforward. Glucosinolates in the root break down to form isothiocyanates when the root is grated or cut. These compounds are genuinely antimicrobial. A 2010 study published in the Journal of Food Protection confirmed horseradish extract's effectiveness against Listeria, E. coli, and Salmonella. This is chemistry, not folk superstition. Buy a root crown from a nursery or order online for under $10. Plant it in a bucket or raised bed if you want to limit spread. In open soil, it will colonize aggressively. Grate fresh root into apple cider vinegar with a bit of salt, and you have a preserved condiment and a genuine antimicrobial food product. You eliminate a $6 jar purchase and gain a permanently producing medicinal food asset. Number 9. Rhubarb. Rhubarb is misunderstood as a dessert ingredient, something you use once a year for strawberry pie. That framing undersells what it actually is, a completely self-sufficient perennial that emerges in early spring when nothing else is producing, tolerates cold better than almost any food plant, and can live and produce in the same spot for 20 years or more. In 18th and 19th century Britain, rhubarb was one of the first crops to be forced and harvested in late winter, before any other fresh produce was available. The forcing technique, covering crowns to encourage early pale growth, gave British households access to fresh food in the hunger gap between winter stores running low and spring crops coming in. That gap still exists. Rhubarb fills it. The stalks are high in vitamin K and contain oxalic acid, which is the same compound found in spinach and kale. Note the leaves are toxic and should never be eaten, only the stalks. But the stalks are a legitimate food source, with documented use for both culinary and digestive medicinal purposes across Asian and European traditions. A mature crown from a reputable nursery costs $8 to $15 and is available in varieties like Victoria or Canada Red. Plant it with good compost in a permanent location. It doesn't like to be moved, and let it establish for one full season without heavy harvesting. By year 2, you'll be cutting stalks from May through June every year for the rest of your life from that single planting. This is the definition of a food asset. Number 10. Garlic. Perennial approach. Most gardeners treat garlic as an annual plant cloves in fall, harvest in summer, buy new seed garlic next year, but hardneck garlic varieties, managed correctly, operate as a semi-perennial system. When you save your largest cloves from every harvest and replant them, you're selecting for adaptation to your specific soil and climate. Within 5 to 7 years of this cycle, your garlic is genetically calibrated to your exact growing conditions. It outperforms commercial seed garlic every time. Garlic's allicin, released when a clove is crushed, is one of the most well-documented natural antimicrobial compounds in food science. A 2011 review in the Journal of Antimicrobial Chemotherapy confirmed allicin's activity against drug-resistant bacterial strains. During World War I, garlic was used directly as a wound antiseptic when medical supplies ran short, applied as a diluted juice on bandages to prevent infection. This is documented in military medical records. Hardneck varieties, rocambole, porcelain, and purple stripe, produce scapes in early summer that are themselves a harvestable crop. Cut the scapes before they curl fully and use them exactly like garlic in cooking. That's 2 harvests from 1 planting. Buy certified disease-free seed garlic from a regional supplier. Expect to pay $10 to $20 per pound, which plants roughly 40 to 50 cloves. Plant in October, harvest the following July. Save your best heads, replant, never buy seed garlic again. This is the most compressed version of the ownership cycle. 1 purchase, perpetual production, and a food that has genuine antimicrobial utility you can store for 8 to 12 months without refrigeration. Let's step back from the individual plants and look at the underlying principle, because once you see it, every other food decision you make will look different. The grocery system is built on annualized extraction. Every year you pay again. Every year the price is whatever the market sets. Every year your food security depends on a supply chain that spans multiple continents, dozens of logistics handoffs, and energy inputs you don't control. The design is not accidental. Annualized dependency is a business model. It's the same model as a lease, a subscription, a rental agreement. The moment you stop paying, the service stops. Perennial food systems operate on an entirely different economic logic. The upfront cost is real: time, plants, soil preparation. But the cost curve slopes the opposite direction. After year 3, most perennial plants require less maintenance, not more. After year 5, production peaks and holds. After year 10, you're harvesting food from infrastructure your children will eventually inherit. The cost per calorie approaches 0, no annual subscription, no supply chain dependency, no price spikes from events that happen on the other side of the world. This is what true cost accounting looks like. When you buy garlic at $8 per pound, and that's the current average, you're not just buying garlic. You're paying for Turkish or Chinese supply chain logistics, warehouse storage, import tariffs, cold chain management, retail markup, and the energy to run all of those systems. When you harvest your own garlic, you're paying the labor cost of planting once per year and the capital cost of the original seed. Everything else is compounding return on that initial investment. The historical precedent is unambiguous. Every civilization that maintained distributed food production, where households and communities retained direct access to productive land and seed, demonstrated resilience during supply disruptions that devastated those without it. The Irish famine was not caused by a lack of food in Ireland. It was caused by dependency on a single crop controlled by external market forces, while alternative food systems had been dismantled. The lesson is structural, not nostalgic, and the science supports the permanence of these choices. Perennial root systems build soil organic matter continuously. Asparagus crowns improve the soil they grow in over decades. Comfrey mines and cycles nutrients that would otherwise be lost. Elder trees increase pollinator populations that benefit everything nearby. These aren't isolated plants. They're components of a self-reinforcing system where each element makes the others more productive. That's not how any product you buy at a store works. Products depreciate. Productive ecosystems appreciate. The 10 plants I've described share 4 characteristics that make them structurally superior to the grocery store alternative. They're perennial, meaning the establishment cost amortizes over decades. They're reproductively viable, meaning you can propagate from what you grow. They're storage stable, meaning harvest surpluses preserve without electricity. And they're functionally redundant, meaning if one fails, the others continue producing. Build a system with those 4 properties, and you have something no grocery store can offer you: food security that doesn't depend on anyone's decisions but your own. The grocery store relies on you having no alternative, relies on you never having planted anything, never having built soil, never having saved a seed. The moment you start doing those things, even modestly, the dependency weakens. Not because you're at war with the system, but because you're simply less exposed to it. This isn't something you build in a weekend. A 30-year asparagus bed takes 3 years to establish. A hazelnut grove reaches peak production in a decade. Garlic takes 5 years of selection to fully adapt to your conditions. None of this is fast. All of it is permanent. Here's what I want you to take away from this. You don't need 10 acres and a tractor. You need 10 plants and a decade of patience. The people who built food security for their households throughout history didn't do it by stockpiling. They did it by producing. Continuously, perennially, year after year, from the same piece of ground. Your first step is singular. Pick the one plant from this list that fits your climate, your space, and your appetite. Just one. Get it in the ground this season. Let it establish. In 3 years, it will be producing. In 10 years, it will be a permanent feature of your food system that you and everyone living with you depends on the way your great-grandparents depended on the kitchen garden. They never let go fallow. That is what ownership looks like. Not a full pantry you bought, A living system you built. One that doesn't have a checkout line, doesn't close during emergencies, and doesn't raise prices when the news gets bad. Start with one plant. Build the rest around it. Your food security is not something you should be renting.